Alright, hey guys, Pax, welcome back to another Pokemon Pocket video. As the title states, we will be going over the tragedy that is Fighting type. Fighting type, nowadays, especially in the current meta, is a husk of its former self. This archetype used to be legendary, extremely fun. As power crept hit, more meta trainer cards got added to the game. It slowly fell off, and yeah, in this video, I'll be going over basically every booster set, looking at the prominence of Fighting type in the booster set from Genetic Apex up until Paldean Wonders, and analyze the rise and fall of this once very fun archetype. If you're watching this in the future, post Paldean Wonders, let me know if Fighting type got a lot better. Yeah, hopefully it did. I'm very optimistic with Fighting type coming back to the meta, but looking at how things are progressing, it seems very unlikely. So if you're watching this like 3 months in advance, let me know. If you're watching this upon release and you are a time traveler, same thing. Just let me know, just please. I'm really invested in this archetype. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's kind of seen as an underdog archetype. There's another one as well, which I might make a video later on. It's an archetype that's pretty much been dead ever since this game's release. I'm not gonna say what it is, but you guys can probably already tell. Yes, it's fire. Totally. Fire has been dead ever since release. Like, it's never been viable. Yes. But yeah, anyways, with the intro out of the way, let's get right into the video. So the structure of this video, again, pretty much I'm just going to be talking about how meta Fighting type was in each booster set meta. So first Genetic Apex, then Mythical Islands, and then so on and so forth, just like that. I will also be playing some background footage corresponding with the meta decks at the time. So as you can see right here, hopefully you guys do enjoy this background footage. Anyways, here we go. Genetic Apex. This is where everything began. And honestly, when the game came out, a lot of good cards in the meta. Like, this every type pretty much, for the most part. I can't really think of a good like metal type card, but for the most part, yeah, a lot of good cards. Lightning, water, fire, grass were very fun. And looking at the Fighting type meta, a lot of good cards came out. So notable ones are Machamp EX, very cool. Requires a lot of build-up, but given this time in this game's lifespan, it was very slow. Like, it's not as fast-paced nowadays. We have, of course, like rare candies, copycat, stuff like that to help just kind of like boost the speed of the game. Back in the day, it was very slow. We didn't even have Cyrus. So the win condition Cyrus came out in, I believe, Spacetime Smackdown. So like 2 packs later. All we had right now was Sabrina, which is still very good, even to this day. But in my opinion, not as good as Cyrus, of course. Especially towards the late game when it comes to win condition cards. But yeah, looking at the cards, we got Machamp EX, as I mentioned. Golem was pretty cool as well. Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan. These 2 Pokemon will see a bit of relevancy later on in future metas. We also got Kabutops. Pretty cool. Again, not that powerful, but had a pretty unique ability, able to heal up some damage. But when it comes to the most prominent meta-relevant Fighting type deck from Genetic Apex, it has to be Marowak EX and Primeape. This duo was extremely fun. It requires a lot of RNG, and if you guys ever use like Megalopony EX, it feels very similar by just looking at it. So looking at Marowak EX, you can do a max damage of 160. If you get 2 heads, 160. However, if you get 2 tails, you do 0 damage. So it's either you're doing 0 damage, 80 damage, or 160. Like either of those 3. So yeah, of course not as powerful as Megalopony, but at the time, given the 2 energy requirement, it could be huge. Like, you can one-shot like Pikachu EX back in the day, which was very meta-relevant. Debatably one of the best Pokemon EXs they added in Genetic Apex. That guy definitely carried me a lot, especially in the MMO events. But yeah, so we got this guy, Marowak EX, very fun. Damage does vary. Can sometimes be very unreliable, much like, of course, Megalopony. If not even more, because it doesn't have a confusion effect. It doesn't confuse your opponent after attacking, which, of course, Megalopony does. But we also have Primeape, in a sense like a predecessor to Silvally, if you know what I mean. Damage-wise, this card is very similar. And yeah, as you can see right here, if this Pokemon sustained any amount of damage, the attack does 100. So base damage is only 40. And if this Pokemon sustained like, let's say like 10 damage, you can do plus 60 more, which is the same damage as Silvally, of course. So yeah, back in the day, this card had a lot of potential. It can potentially one-shot Pikachu EX. Because keep in mind, Pikachu EX only has 120 HP. This guy does 100 plus type advantage. You are doing 120. So very fun. And the cool thing about this card is that there is a promo card Mankey. This card came out in the Lapras EX drop event, the very first drop event in this game. And this guy is pretty nice. So after attacking, you take 10 damage of recoil, which perfectly sets you up for next turn. Next turn, you evolve into Primeape, and you can just do 100 damage, just like that. So yeah, very fun. In my opinion, I consider this as the predecessor to non-EX Silvally. And that was basically Genetic Apex. Like, when it comes to decks, this deck wasn't the best. I'd consider it A tier. I did make a deck showcase back in the day from what I remember, but compared to like Pikachu EX, Charizard EX, and Mewtwo EX, not as consistent, especially with the damage, but nevertheless, Marowak EX is easy to build up, and yeah, potential to one-shot or two-hit KO a lot of your opponent's Pokemon. So yeah, a lot of potential, but very inconsistent. That's pretty much what Marowak's EX is. And going down to Mythical Islands, so Mythical Islands only added 8 new fighting Pokemon cards. So the most notable are Marshadow. I'll talk more about Marshadow later on because it has pretty good synergy, especially in future metas. I'll talk more about the fighting type toolbox later on. Very fun deck in my opinion. And of course we have Aerodactyl EX. This guy, from what I remember, I think the only EX that evolves from a fossil. Yeah, I can't really think of any other fossil type Pokemon that is an EX. I really hope they do bring that back. Like when you think about fossil type Pokemon, I feel like they kind of fallen off. Like they released some Pokemon, fossil Pokemon, but like no one remembers them. At least I don't. I guess Omastar. It's been a while since I've seen Omastar, but yeah, I'll talk more about, of course, Rampardos later on. They're basically one of the best fossil Pokemon in the game. But looking at Aerodactyl EX, you can do an easy 80 damage, only requires 2 energy, of course, so nice. And you can potentially disrupt your opponent. Now, granted, that disruption is rather limited, because as you can see here, your opponent can't evolve their active Pokemon. That's what Aerodactyl EX does. If this Pokemon is in your active spot, your opponent can't evolve their active Pokemon. But of course, your opponent can easily work around this by evolving their Pokemon in their bench. And during this time, even nowadays, it was more common for people to evolve their bench Pokemon. So yeah, I feel like this card could be good against something like possibly Shining Revelry Charizard, Mega Venusaur EX. Yeah, it could be a bit disruptive against those two, but in the grand scheme of things, not really worth running. You never know, it might come back. But looking at Mythical Islands, when it comes to the overall fighting type meta, more people stuck with the Genetic Apex cards. Like Marshadow was pretty nice. You could somewhat work it with, like, let's say like Marowak EX and other decks as well, but it'll get more powerful later on, which again, I can't wait to talk about that. It's very fun. It's one of my favorite decks in this game, but yeah, got Marshadow, Aerodactyl. Going down to Spacetime Smackdown, they released so many good fighting type cards. So in this set, we got Lucario, non-EX Lucario, Rampardos, and Gallade EX. All 3 goated Pokemon cards. So for one thing, Rampardos carried the fighting type archetype for several months. This was essentially the go-to fighting type card, a fossil Pokemon as well. Only requires 1 energy and was an amazing late game finisher. Doing 130 damage, you do take 50 damage of recoil, but once this guy was out, he was hard to beat. So easy for this Pokemon to attack, synergize very well with a lot of cards. And looking at Gallade EX, very strong and also very fun. So yeah, Gallade EX back in the day was primarily paired with Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan. Amazing synergy. Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan are primarily meant to disrupt your opponent towards the early game, either doing chip damage to the bench or chipping your opponent's active Pokemon. And then towards the mid to late game, sub in Gallade EX and just sweep your opponent. Gallade EX, the damage is rather variable, but still hits like a truck. So base damage is 70. If your opponent's active Pokemon has 1 energy attached, you do 90, 2 energy, 110, 3 energy, 130, and so on and so forth. So the damage does scale. And in this pack, we also got Lucario. This non-EX Lucario is debatably the best fighting type support Pokemon. So looking at this card, as you can see, once this guy is out, in either your bench or your active, your fighting type Pokemon do plus 20 more damage. Now, this is where the fighting type toolbox emerged. This deck was something. It's very fun, and I really do like the gimmick. So first of all, it's a fully non-EX deck. It runs Lucario, Marshadow, and Rampardos. One more card will be added. It will come next month, but yeah, for now, very strong. So ideally, you would want to lead with Lucario, do some pretty good chip damage. Keep in mind, Lucario attacking does 80 damage. If you have 2 Lucarios, you're doing 100, just like that. And then once that Lucario gets knocked out, sub into Marshadow. And Marshadow is pretty nice, essentially pretty much the Avenger of this trio right here. So after Lucario gets knocked out, Marshadow will do plus 60 more damage. So 100 base damage. And if you have another Lucario in your bench, 120. And then after Marshadow gets knocked out, sub in the final boss, Rampardos, into your active and just sweep your opponent just like that. So yeah, extremely fun. And by now, you can probably see a theme on why early fighting type cards were so good at the time. So very easy to build up, of course, only requiring either 1 or 2 energy. And I feel like that's like the perfect number, given that unlike fire and like water lightning type, fighting type has no energy support. We got like Brock, sure. Brock, technically you could consider as like a fighting type support, but it only applies to Onix. But when it comes to cards such as like baby Pokemon like Mantine, Pichu, Magby, we have nothing equivalent to that for fighting. and this is why I'll get into it more later on, but this is why bulky fighting type Pokemon don't work. Anyways, proceeding into Triumphant Light. In this pack, we got 2 powerful fighting type Pokemon, and those are Garchomp EX and Sudowoodo. So Garchomp EX is a well-balanced card, requires 3 energy to do 100 damage, but the first attack is rather nice, only requiring 1 energy, and provides as decent poke. So yeah, you can do 50 damage to any of your opponent's Pokemon, and that could disrupt your opponent immensely, because next turn, so let's say like you target one of the bench Pokemon, not able to kill, but next turn you could Cyrus, and that could disrupt your opponent, especially if they're trying to build their active. So yeah, extremely fun. We also got Sudowoodo. This card, from what I remember, I think it might be the first Pokemon that directly counters EXs. Because looking at this guy does only base 20 damage, but plus 30 more if you're going against an EX Pokemon. And keep in mind, this came out in Triumphant Light. Now, when you think about Triumphant Light, the main chase card for this booster pack was Arceus EX. And Arceus EX is weak to fighting type. In other words, this Pokemon can 2-hit KO Arceus. So let's say your opponent is very unlucky, they are forced to lead with Arceus in their active slot. They go first, you're going second. So your first turn right off the bat, if you have Sudowoodo in your active, you can start chipping away onto Arceus. So base damage, Sudowoodo is already doing 70 damage to Arceus EX because of type advantage. If you have 1 Lucario on the field, you are doing 90 damage. 2 Lucarios, 110. So yeah, rest in peace Arceus. This was basically fighting type at its prime. It's all downhill from here, pretty much, for the most part, but yeah, this meta was very fun. So as I mentioned before, the fighting type toolbox, Sudowoodo was added to this deck. So 2 copies of Lucario, 1 copy of Sudowoodo, 1 copy of Marshadow, and 2 copies of Rampardos. And then looking at the deck, keep in mind Arceus EX was extremely meta at this time. Marshadow and Rampardos both have potential to one-shot Arceus. Because again, Marshadow, you want to play towards the middle game once your active Pokemon does get knocked out, does 100 damage. With type advantage, does 120. And if you have 1 Lucario in your bench, you're doing 140. Able to one-shot Arceus, which of course has 140 HP. And let's say your opponent does Giant Cape, get another Lucario out, doing 160. So insane. And then of course Rampardos, enough said, this guy does 150 damage to Arceus EX. And if they Giant Cape, get another Lucario out, 170 to 190. So yeah, this deck was extremely nasty. As for Garchomp, this card was most commonly paired with non-EX Lucario. And I know this was pre-Oricorio, but Lucario is a pretty good counter to the Nightmare Bird, of course, doing 80 damage to that Lightning Bird because of type advantage and of course the ability. So damage really does add up. And yeah, as I mentioned, it's all downhill from here. This is when fighting type was at its strongest. So looking at the next month, Shining Revelry only added 8 new fighting type cards. Not many were that notable. I feel like the most notable or the most notorious was Lucario EX. This card, I really want to forget that this card was ever added to the game because pre-Lucario EX, like the previous month, I was hyping it up. I was like, non-EX Lucario, he's amazing, very powerful. And just you guys wait. Lucario EX is gonna sweep the nation. It's gonna turn the whole game upside down. Guy comes out, and the non-EX is leagues better. So looking at it requires a lot of buildup. And sure, you do 100 damage, poke the bench a little bit, but overall, not that impressive. I feel like Lucario, the non-EX Lucario is a lot more effective. It energizes a lot better with other fighting type cards. And yeah, that's pretty much Shining Revelry. Not really too impressive. The following month, we got Celestial Guardians, and in this booster set, not that many prominent fighting type cards. We got Passimian EX. Yeah, this Pokemon that I don't know why he exists. Not that good. And of course, we got Lycanroc. Lycanroc, Dawn form. We got 2 of them. The other one isn't really that impressive. This guy was very nice. Very reminiscent to Primeape, especially with the damage, as well as another non-EX that came out the following month. So yeah, this guy does 50 base damage, but can do 50 more, a total of 100 to Pokemon that have more HP than this Lycanroc. So yeah, it can do a ton of damage. The only downside is that if your opponent's active Pokemon has less or equal amount of HP to this Lycanroc, you're only doing 50 damage. And I don't know if it's confirmation bias, but back in the day, when I used this card in PvP, I would run into so many circumstances where my Lycanroc will have the same amount of HP as my opponent's active, and this guy's only doing like 50. So both Pokemon are at like 70 HP. I attack, Only doing 50, opponent can attack yet again, possibly one-shotting Lycanroc. Very similar to Silvally, which again comes out the following month. So power creep really hit hard with this Pokemon. And for Lycanroc, most people pair this with Rampardos. So you ideally want to leave it Lycanroc. Once that guy gets knocked out, sub another one. Once that guy gets knocked out, sub in Rampardos. And sweet. So yeah, very fun deck. Saw a bit of success in tournaments at the time. But yeah, of course, looking at the next month, Extradimensional Crisis, Silvally came out. And when it comes to fighting type cards, they were pretty forgettable. Like, fighting type is still strong. From what I remember, Garchomp EX was still very prominent in the meta. But when it comes to new cards, yeah, not many were that impressive. When it comes to Garchomp EX, this guy saw a bit of prominence because keep in mind, last month, Rare Candy came out. So it is extremely buffing a lot of stage 2s, making it far easier to get those Pokemon out. And as for Silvally, back in the early days of this meta, it was commonly paired with Rampardos. So yeah, this replacing Lycanroc, rest in peace, Lycanroc Dawn form. In my opinion, this wasn't Silvally's strongest pairing. Silvally saw more success paired with Zeraora and Oricorio, because Rampardos Silvally, your first turn, if you're going first, it'll take Silvally 2 more turns until it can attack. Whereas if you go second, your second turn, you can start attacking. Looking at Zeraora and Oricorio, Zeraora's energy generation will make it so that you can start attacking with Silvally your second turn going first. So yeah, a lot better in my opinion. And that's pretty much Extradimensional Crisis, not too impressive. Next month, Eevee Grove, you only got 5 new fighting type cards. And they're all not impressive. I feel like the most notable one here is Wisecash. But again, this guy's not that good. Looking at this Pokemon, yeah, 130 HP, stage 1. Earthquake requires a whopping 4 energy. And this is pre-baby Pokemon as well. So energy generation wasn't as huge as it is now. I mean, you could pair this card with, like, let's say Zeraora and Dawn to try to feed this guy up. Also, maybe Giratina EX, why not? But yeah, 4 energy, Earthquake does 130. And then after attacking, this attack does 10 damage to each of your bench Pokemon, setting up your opponent to Cyrus next turn. So yeah, I don't know what they were cooking. I don't know what they were smoking as well when they were making this. This is an abomination. This is truly revolting. Like, if you ever played the game, you know how powerful Earthquake is in the mainline video game. Earthquake is like the opposite of that. Like, 130 damage, okay, sure, does decent damage, but also disrupts you a lot. And of course, the energy requirement is atrocious. And yeah, that was Eevee Grove. Next month, we got Donphan EX. This card was actually very fun. Essentially, it has 2 types of attack. So this card only requires 1 energy to attack, doing 50 damage. If this Pokemon has 3 energy attached, this Pokemon does 110 damage. So a very nice card towards the early to mid game. It's doing pretty decent poke. This EX is most commonly paired with Rampardos. So of course, leading with Donphan EX. And after that guy gets knocked out, sub into Rampardos and sweep your opponent. Very straightforward when it comes to Rampardos usage. I feel like Rampardos is definitely one of the most straightforward cards in this game. Just get him out towards the mid to late game and then just bully your opponent. Just like that. Very straightforward, very fun. There's also a Poketool that was paired with Donphan EX. Memory Light, this Poketool came out the following month in Secluded Springs. I might as well mention it very briefly right now. So this card, as you can see, the Pokemon this card is attached to can use any attack from its previous evolution. So yeah, briefly looking into Secluded Springs meta, I just want to kind of combine both parts since I'm already talking about Donphan EX. In Secluded Springs, we got this copy of Phanpy right here. Has 1 attack Flail. This attack does damage to your opponent's active Pokemon equal to the damage this Pokemon has on it. So because of Memory Light, Donphan EX can use Flail, and depending on how many damage that Pokemon has sustained, you can get some insane damage numbers. So Donphan EX has 160 HP in total. Given this, with Memory Light and also the Flail attack, you can do a max damage of 150. If this guy's at 10 HP, doing 150. So yeah, could potentially hit a bit harder. Gigantic Press fully built, because again, only doing 110. If Donphan EX only has 30 HP remaining, doing 130. So yeah, very similar to Rampardos, but also, again, just doing that extra bit of damage, and that damage could definitely win you the game. Slightly digressing, but yeah, Wisdom of Sea and Sky, primarily, best card was Donphan EX. Very fun. Next month, aside from, of course, as I mentioned, Memory Light and Phanpy, we got Poliwrath EX. This card was cool for like half a week, and it's very sad since I'm a huge Poliwrath fan. That card was essentially my starter for my Heart Gold Soul Silver run back when I was a kid, because I lost my Feraligatr. Shout out to people who remember Pokewalkers. Came with my copy of Heart Gold Soul Silver, and yeah, I put my Feraligatr into that Pokewalker and it broke. So it's still broke. I still have it today. It just sits dormant in my closet. Just hopefully someday I'll fix it. But yeah, dude, my Feraligator's been in that Pokewalker for like 16 years at this point. So Someday I'll get it. Kind of digressing, but shout out to you guys if you do remember Pokewalkers. Extremely expensive nowadays, from what I've gathered. But yeah, anyways, coming back to Poliwrath EX. Cool for half a week. Can do a max of 180 damage, especially paired with Politoed. Without Politoed, you can do a max of 140 damage. I actually made a deck showcase of Poliwrath EX back when it first came out. And I got a bit of criticism. A lot of people were saying that, like, because for my deck, I didn't run Politoed. People were saying run Politoed. But the main issue that I found with that is that they're both stage 2s. And given that, that's a huge issue because, for one thing, this deck promotes of a dual type. So you basically have to run baby Pokemon. To do 140 damage, Poliwrath EX has to have at least one water energy attached. So you need to have either like Mantine or Manaphy in your deck. Either that or just run pure dual type, just like water and fighting. But that could be rather inconsistent since, of course, also needs at least one fighting type energy attached. Yeah, given that 2 stage 2s, it's gonna be super hard to build. This is in Secluded Springs. This is the meta where Suicune EX came out. So Suicune Greninja was very prominent already. And having a Poliwrath EX in your active and then Politoed in your bench, that was very unlikely to do. That's very hard to do unless you get like extremely good luck. I probably should have still showed it in a deck showcase. But yeah, once again, in PvP, you're most likely not pulling that off. And yeah, Secluded Springs was the last pack from Series A, finishing it off with Poliwrath EX. Which, yeah, I feel like that's kind of it's a pretty bad way to finish things off, in my opinion. If anything, I mean, Memory Light was pretty nice. Also, of course, Phanpy, but Poliwrath EX as the last EX from Series A when it comes to fighting type. Yeah, very sad to see. Now looking into Series B, Mega Rising, we got Hitmonchan EX. This card, a lot of people like this EX. I remember at the time, it felt more like Cope, because I've only seen this guy like in PvP like probably like 1 or 2 times, maybe 3 times, but not as much. And yeah, looking at the card, it does 50 damage. That's pretty much what it does. Like very easy 50 chip damage. The main issue with this, of course, is that it's an EX, so if your opponent does knock out this Hitmonchan, getting an insane lead and could potentially mess you up next turn. Very frail as well, of course, and in my opinion, ultimately unimpressive. Again, when this first came out, people were trying to cope. They're like, this guy's good, doesn't do type advantage as well. Oh, yeah, I feel like this Pokemon did type advantage, it would be a bit better, you know, but not being able to do that and only doing 50 damage, and this is Mega Rising, keep in mind, this is the meta where Mega EXs came out. So very tanky Mega EXs. And we have Hitmonchan EX. This Pokemon's damage could easily be healed up with cards such as like Lily, even PC Lady, most of it at least. And DD EX also came out in Mega Rising. So yeah, that's Hitmonchan. We also got Golurk, which isn't too meta relevant, but I did make a deck showcase and this card is very fun. 180 damage, a max of 180 damage. And yeah, I did make a deck showcase again. The main theme of this is drawing monster cards. You remember that one scene in Yu-Gi-Oh! The original series, the filler arc with, I forgot the name, Waking the Dragons? Remember that one scene where the Pharaoh is fighting Weevil Underwood on top of a train? I don't know how plausible that is in real life, but I mean, it's an anime BS, but there's an iconic scene where like Yugi's like drawing monster cards and just keeps on attacking, literally being like, draw, monster cardo. Sorry if you guys cringed, but basically that's how it feels using Golurk, because you're drawing monster cards, and the more monster cards you draw, the more damage this Pokemon does. This requires a bit of RNG. Of course, you do want to get Golurk out as fast as possible. And given that this deck runs primarily mostly Pokemon, depending on RNG, you might not be able to get Golurk out. That's the main issue, but otherwise, very fun. A very fun non-EX deck to use. And yeah, that's pretty much Mega Rising. Going down to Crimson Blaze, we got Mega Lopunny EX, which again, as I mentioned earlier, is an updated version of Marowak EX. The confusion is pretty nice. Once again, I did make a deck showcase of this with a very sus thumbnail, yeah, but and keep in mind at this time we got Will, which is an amazing support for Mega Lopunny, making it so that you are guaranteed to do at least 90 damage. And yeah, you can do either 90 damage, 180, or 0. But either way, you're confusing your opponent, which could be huge. That confusion can definitely determine if you're going to win or lose the game. And this card saw a bit of success in tournament play, but again, overall, the damage is unreliable, much like Marowak EX. Sure, we got Will, but at the same time, I mean, depending on the stage of the game, you might not have Will, and yeah, as for confusion, your opponent can easily work around that, either subbing their active Pokemon out, or using PC Lady to heal a bit of damage as well as remove status conditions. So there are ways to work around confusion, and compared to other status effects such as like paralysis or sleep, not as effective. But yeah, that's pretty much Crimson Blaze. Again, Mega Lopunny, and that's pretty much it. We got 2 more booster sets left, so hopefully you guys are enjoying this video so far. So yeah, Fantastical Parade. We got 2 EXs, 2 fighting type EXs. One of them is pretty fun. Not the best, but very interesting for what it does. The other one I have no idea why it exists. Like, this is a prime reason why fighting type is failing. It's because of cards such as, I'm just gonna say Gigalith EX. Yeah, that's the first one. So Gigalith EX, one of the worst EX Pokemon in the game, basically exposes the main issue with fighting type. So looking at this, requires 4 energy to attack, and fighting type has no energy support. This guy requires 4 fighting type energy. Not colorless, not whatever, but just pure fighting type. And then after attacking, this guy can't attack. Yeah, I mean, there are ways to work around that, especially with Lyra, but it's just so awkward. It feels like you're doing so much to just do 130, and then after that you have to like freaking jump over hoops and hurdles to keep this guy more viable and to keep this guy attacking. And overall, not worth it. Just that slow buildup is very annoying as well. People pair this card with Swanna, and even with Swanna, like Swanna's able to do like 60 damage while also feeding Gigalith potentially. Even with that, it just feels so awkward to run it. Because again, Suicune Greninja exists, your opponent can just easily target Gigalith and start just beating up that Pokemon. So fighting type has really fallen, man. We've gone from Garchomp EX, able to do a bit of chip damage towards the early game and then some decent damage also towards the middle to late game, to Gigalith EX, who's supposed to be kind of like a late game finisher, but why even run this card? You might as well just run freaking Rampardos, you know? Like, this is also a stage 2, keep in mind. So why run Gigalith EX when you can run Rampardos, which only requires 1 energy to attack, whereas of course this guy, like, you have to build him up for several turns. And the other EX we got was Mega Medicham EX. If you put these 2 Pokemon side by side, and you ask somebody, like, which one is the promo card? Which one is the free-to-play card? Which one was the card from the main booster pack? I feel like most people will say Mega Medicham. He looks cool, he's a Mega, attack is pretty decent as well. But no, Gigalith was from the main pack, Mega Medicham was the promo card. The attack is pretty unique, because this is the first EX that can do straight-up attack damage to an Oricorio. So when you think of Oricorio, sure, there are EXs that kind of counter that. Mega Blaziken EX can do burnt damage. Darkrai EX can do a bit of chip damage with its ability. But when it comes to just doing raw attack damage, bypassing the ability, Mega Medicham EX can do that. So yeah, I'm just gonna read the attack ability. If this Pokemon has any Psychic Energy attached, this attack does 40 more damage, so a max of 140. Against Oricorio, a max of 160 because of type advantage. This attack's damage isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So, in other words, bypassing Oricorio's effect. Because looking at Oricorio, you guys know, essentially, Safeguard dials down to EXs aren't able to attack this Pokemon. Mega Medicham bypasses that, able to just absolutely decimate Oricorio. So, very fun. When it comes to overall meta, I mean, wasn't too meta relevant. I haven't really seen this guy in ranked at all, but still very noteworthy, especially since, of course, yeah, the only EX that can basically just flat out one-shot Oricorio. Very scary in the meta, because I mean, Oricorio, as much as you guys hate him or like him, that Pokemon basically sets a bar in the game. You know what I mean? Like, set some limitations, because without Oricorio, you can just run a fully EX deck. Non-EXs, depending on how powerful they are, most of them are probably not worth running. Oricorio pretty much keeps EXs in check, making sure that they don't get too powerful. And yeah, given this, it's very scary, especially if they add more cards that disable abilities. It's making it so that EXs can just like absolutely decimate Oricorio. Only time will tell, but yeah, if you're watching this in the future, or if you're a time traveler, let me know in the comments below if Oricorio is still viable. And lastly, we got the Paldean Wonders meta, the current meta from the time I'm uploading this video. Yeah, in this meta, in this booster pack, we only got 9 fighting type cards, no EXs, and the most noteworthy fighting type Pokemon that we got was Annihilate. This Pokemon, pretty decent damage, 90 damage is pretty nice. With type advantage, you can do 110. So going up against Oricorio, this Pokemon can one-shot that bird, even with Giant Cape and Starting Plains buffing that Pokemon. Because with Giant Cape and Starting Plains, Oricorio will be at 110 HP, 90 damage plus type advantage, 110, able to one-shot that Nightmare Bird. I did make a deck showcase, it should be the one before this one. I paired Annihilate with Megalopunny EX. Very interesting deck, requires a lot of RNG, especially with getting Annihilate out as fast as possible, as well as, of course, Megalopunny's coin flip mechanic. I think I ranked the deck B tier, B or A tier, one of those two, but nowhere near close to A tier. Not as reliable in ranked. You might hate using this deck. You might become Annihilate. So you might become a Rage Monkey yourself because of how infuriating this deck might be, especially if Mega Lopunny does fail you and you can't get Annihilate out. But that's pretty much the state of the fighting type meta right here. So Annihilate Mega Lopunny, yeah. Overall, as you can see, definitely a downhill spiral. Like, yeah, I feel like towards the early days of this game, once Rampardos released, Dina was like, okay, this guy is extremely powerful. We gotta dial it down. AKA just make sure fighting type just stays dead. And as you can see, yeah, it's dead now. In the future, I wouldn't be surprised if it does come back. I really am hoping. A lot of hope. Because I've been looking at other metas such as like Water type. Water type, once Gyarados EX fell off, Water type wasn't really that viable up until Suicune EX came out. And that's when everyone started cooking. That's when Water type became S tier yet again. So I want the same treatment with fighting type. And I'm an optimist at heart. So looking at Lucario EX, I wanted Lucario EX to be very good. Ultimately, it fell flat on its face. We are still waiting for Mega Lucario EX to come out. It's definitely coming out. It's just a matter of time. Very popular Mega EX Pokemon. But they better not fumble with that Pokemon, please. Or just, I don't even care, man. They can have like the most obscure fighting type Pokemon and make that Pokemon just extremely broken. I wouldn't complain. Like if Mega Lucario was the worst, but then they added like let's say like a very broken like promo card randomly, just like S tier promo card, one of the best ones. Why not? I just want to see the fighting type meta on top again. And that's the video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy my nonsensical rambling. Hopefully you guys found this enjoyable and a bit entertaining. I tried to be. Again, I do plan on making more of these types of videos. It's kind of a commentary style, just looking at archetypes, looking at issues, also positives of the game, stuff like that. Next video that I have planned in this similar format, I'm going over another archetype, not a color archetype, but it is a type archetype. You probably know what it is, given that it's probably going to be a very short video because I'll be honest, the archetype is pretty dead. Could easily be fixed, especially if they do like a booster set themed revolving this Pokemon type. Yeah, it's Dragon. I don't know why I'm being so cryptic with this, but you can probably tell it is Dragon, and Dragon type I want to see work in this game. But the issue is that they could make it just extremely broken. I think in the TCG, Dragon type was I don't know if it still is, but it did dominate the meta from what I heard. Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know much about the TCG. Let me know in the comments below if Dragon type is good in that Pokemon card medium. But overall, yeah, that's the video. Let me know in the comments below if I missed out on anything, any noteworthy fighting type cards. Also video ideas if you guys have any recommendations, suggestions on what topics I should cover. So let me know in the comments below. And yeah, it's a video. Hope you guys did enjoy. And I'll see you guys on my next one. Peace.